The hallway outside room 14 of the Grandeur Hotel had never been so quiet. Two uniformed security guards stood stiffly beside the polished wooden door. The hotel manager waited behind them, hands clasped respectfully in front of him. And in the middle of the corridor stood a woman in a simple but elegant navy dress. Calm, composed, unbothered. Inside the room, laughter echoed. Michael and his mistress enjoying what they believed was the perfect life paid for by a foolish wife. The woman in the hallway slowly looked at the door. Then she spoke one quiet sentence that would shatter everything. You picked the wrong hotel. But Michael did not know that yet, because 7 months earlier, this story had begun very differently. If you enjoy powerful revenge stories like this one, take a second right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us what part of the world you're watching from. These stories travel across continents, and we love seeing where our listeners are from. Now, let's begin. In the busy, restless city of Lagos, where traffic horns sang louder than morning birds and ambition moved faster than the tides of the Atlantic, lived a woman most people barely noticed. Her name was Emily Carter. Emily had been married for 8 years to a man named Michael Carter, a mid-level bank manager who worked at a respectable commercial bank in Victoria Island. To outsiders, they looked like the perfect Lagos couple. They lived in a well-furnished apartment in Lekki. They attended neighborhood gatherings. They smiled politely at church on Sundays. But anyone who spent enough time around them noticed one subtle truth. Emily was the quiet engine that kept everything running. She was not loud. She was not flashy. She did not chase attention. Emily spoke softly, listened carefully, and moved through life with the calm discipline of someone who understood responsibility. While Michael liked to present himself as the successful provider, the truth inside their home told a different story. Emily managed the household budget. Emily planned their expenses. Emily ensured their bills were paid before deadlines arrived. Emily even handled the small investments that quietly helped grow their savings. Every month, she reviewed bank statements, checked accounts, and carefully allocated funds. Michael never complained about this arrangement. In fact, he enjoyed it. It allowed him to live comfortably without worrying about the details. And Emily never bragged about her role. She believed marriage was teamwork. Whenever friends praised Michael for being a hardworking husband, Emily simply smiled and changed the subject. In their community, she had built a reputation as a patient, dependable woman. Neighbors often described her with words like respectful, calm, reliable. If someone needed help organizing a neighborhood event, they called Emily. If someone's child needed tutoring in mathematics, they called Emily. If someone's family was going through hardship, Emily was the one quietly dropping off food at their door. She never demanded recognition, but she earned respect. Michael, on the other hand, enjoyed attention. He liked expensive watches. He liked telling stories about deals happening at his bank. He liked being seen as the ambitious man climbing the corporate ladder. For years, their marriage worked because their personalities balanced each other. Emily handled stability. Michael handled appearances. But 8 years into the marriage, something was about to change. And the change would reveal more about Michael than Emily ever expected. The news arrived on a Wednesday morning. Emily had just arrived at her office in Ikoyi when her department director called her into a meeting. At first, she thought something was wrong. Her company had been restructuring teams recently, and sudden meetings sometimes meant layoffs. But when she entered the glass-walled conference room, she immediately sensed a different atmosphere. 3 senior executives were sitting at the table, and they were smiling. Emily sat down slowly, unsure what to expect. The director leaned forward. "Emily," he said warmly, "we've been reviewing your performance over the past 3 years." Emily nodded politely. "You've consistently exceeded every target," he continued. "Your financial planning reports have saved the company millions in operational costs." One of the executives added with a grin, "Frankly, we should have done this sooner." Emily blinked. "Done what, sir?" The director slid a document across the table. "We're promoting you." Emily looked down. Her eyes widened. Senior Financial Strategy Manager. The position came with a significant salary increase, expanded authority, and leadership over a larger department. For a moment, she said nothing. Not because she wasn't happy, but because she was genuinely stunned. Thank you, she said softly. The executives nodded approvingly. You've earned it, one of them said. And there's something else, the director added. He tapped the final page of the document. Emily read the number printed there. Her new salary. It was more than double what she had been earning. And, though she would never say it aloud, it was now considerably higher than Michael's income at the bank. Emily left the meeting feeling grateful, excited, and slightly nervous. She knew this promotion would change things at home, not because she cared about earning more than her husband, but because Michael cared about things like that. Still, she believed he would be proud of her. That evening, Emily cooked Michael's favorite meal, spicy jollof rice with grilled chicken and fried plantain. When he came home from work, she served dinner and sat across from him at the dining table. I have some news, she said gently. Michael looked up from his plate. Good news or bad news? Emily smiled. Good news. She told him about the promotion, the leadership role, the recognition from her executives, and finally the salary. Michael stopped chewing. For a moment his face was unreadable, and he leaned back slowly in his chair. Well, he said, forcing a laugh. Look at you. Emily watched him carefully. You're not upset? She asked. Upset. Michael waved his hand dismissively. Of course not. He smiled, but something in the smile felt tight. This is good for us, he continued. Really good. Emily relaxed slightly. Michael tapped the table thoughtfully. You know what this means? What? It means I don't need to keep killing myself at that bank. Emily frowned slightly. What do you mean? Michael leaned forward confidently. I've been thinking about leaving anyway, he said. The job is draining. And with your new salary, we finally have breathing room. Emily listened quietly. I could focus on starting a business, he continued. Something bigger. Something that could change our future. Emily hesitated. What kind of business? Michael shrugged casually. I've got a few ideas. Investments. Partnerships. Opportunities. His voice grew more excited. But starting something like that requires time. Emily nodded slowly. You want to quit your job? Michael smiled. Exactly. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Think about it, Emily. With your promotion supporting us temporarily, I could build something that makes us both wealthy. Emily studied his face. She wanted to believe him. And in that moment, she did. All right, she said quietly. Michael's smile widened. You trust me? Emily nodded. I do. Michael raised his glass. To our future. Emily raised hers as well. But neither of them realized something important had just shifted inside that marriage. Because for Michael, Emily's promotion wasn't an opportunity. It was permission. Permission to stop pretending to be responsible. And within weeks, the life he would begin living behind Emily's back would slowly destroy everything they had built. But Emily Carter was not the weak woman Michael believed her to be. And soon, he would learn that the hard way. At first, everything seemed exactly as Michael had promised. For the first week after leaving his job, he stayed home and talked endlessly about business ideas. Emily would come back from long days at work to find him sitting at the dining table with his laptop open, spreadsheets on the screen, and notebooks scattered around him. Just for searching, he would say casually. Emily believed him. Why wouldn't she? Michael had always been ambitious, and starting something new took time. Each morning, Emily woke before sunrise. She prepared breakfast, ironed her work clothes, and reviewed emails while sipping coffee at the kitchen counter. Michael usually stayed in bed until she was almost ready to leave. When she kissed him goodbye at the door, he would smile sleepily and say the same words every day. Don't worry about anything. I'm working on our future. Emily would nod, grab her handbag, and hurry out into the chaotic Lagos morning traffic. But the moment her car disappeared down the street, Michael's entire routine changed. He would wait 10 minutes, sometimes 15. Then he would get up slowly, stretch, and check his phone. And almost every morning, there would already be a message waiting. Chloe, is the coast clear? Did she leave yet? I'm bored. Come over. Chloe had entered Michael's life 3 months earlier, while he was still working at the bank. She was bold, glamorous, and the kind of woman who enjoyed attention as much as Michael did. Where Emily was calm and reserved, Chloe was loud and daring. Where Emily spoke carefully, Chloe said exactly what she wanted. Michael had found her exciting, and Chloe had found Michael useful. Once Emily started leaving early for work, their affair became even easier. Michael would shower, dress casually, and leave the apartment like a man heading to an important meeting. But instead of business conferences or investment discussions, he drove straight to Chloe's apartment. Most days were spent exactly the same way. They watched movies, ordered expensive food, laughed at jokes about boring married life. Chloe liked teasing Michael about Emily. "Your wife must be incredibly naive," she once said while painting her nails on the couch. Michael chuckled. "She trusts me completely." Chloe smirked. Poor thing. Michael didn't correct her. Instead, he enjoyed the illusion of living two lives. At home, he played the role of the thoughtful husband planning a brilliant future. With Chloe, he was the carefree man finally enjoying life. Whenever Emily asked about his business research, Michael always had an answer ready. "I'm studying the hospitality industry. I'm analyzing import opportunities. I'm speaking with investors." Emily listened, encouraged him, and even offered suggestions. She never imagined that while she worked late hours to support their household, her husband was spending his afternoons lying beside another woman. And Michael believed he had perfected the arrangement. But secrets, especially careless ones, always grow larger than the people hiding them. And soon, Michael would make a request that would move his deception to a completely different level. One evening, about 2 months after leaving his job, Michael came home with unusual energy. Emily was sitting at the dining table reviewing financial reports from work, her laptop open, and a cup of tea beside her. Michael pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Emily," he said eagerly, "I think I've found it." Emily looked up. "Found what?" "The opportunity." She closed her laptop slowly. "What kind of opportunity?" Michael leaned forward, lowering his voice slightly, as if discussing something confidential. "I've been talking to someone about a hospitality investment," he said. "A resort partnership." Emily listened carefully. "Where?" "Outside Lagos," Michael replied quickly. "A private development project. Luxury accommodations, high-end clients, international investors." Emily folded her hands on the table. "And they want you involved?" Michael nodded. "Yes, but I need to travel to finalize the deal." "Travel where?" "Abuja first," he said smoothly. "Then maybe Port Harcourt." Emily studied his face. "How long would you be gone?" "About 2 weeks." Emily didn't respond immediately. She had spent years managing finances and analyzing business proposals. Something about the way Michael described the opportunity felt vague. "What exactly would your role be in the investment?" she asked. Michael waved his hand lightly. "Initial coordination. Strategic partnership." Emily raised an eyebrow. "And how much capital is required?" Michael hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he answered, "Just a starting contribution." "How much?" Michael took a breath. 15 million naira. The number hung heavily in the air. Emily stared at him. That was not a small starting contribution. It was a serious amount of money. "Michael," she said carefully, "that's a lot to invest in something new." Michael leaned back, already prepared for resistance. "I understand that," he said calmly. "But these opportunities don't come often. If we hesitate, someone else will take the spot." Emily remained silent. Michael softened his voice. "Emily, this could secure our future." He leaned forward again. "I know you've been carrying most of the financial responsibility lately, and I hate that." Emily shook her head gently. "It's not about hate, but it should be temporary," Michael insisted. "Let me build something bigger for us." Emily looked down at the table. Her instincts whispered caution, but her heart remembered the man she had married 8 years earlier. The man she believed was still trying to succeed. Finally, she sighed softly. "If this is real." Michael nodded eagerly. "It is. Then I'll support you." Michael's smile spread instantly. "You will." Emily stood up and walked toward the cabinet where she kept important documents. "Yes," she said quietly. Within minutes, she had transferred the money to Michael's account. He thanked her repeatedly, promising that the trip would change everything. And in a way, it would. Just not in the way Emily believed. Because that 15 million naira was never meant for any investment. It was about to fund something far more reckless and far more humiliating. But Michael had no idea that the woman he believed he was deceiving was already beginning to notice the cracks in his story. And soon, those cracks would lead directly to room 14 of the Grandeur Hotel. 3 days after the money appeared in his account, Michael told Emily he would be leaving for his investment trip. That morning, he wore one of his best suits and carried a sleek leather briefcase, carefully playing the role of a man about to secure a major business deal. Emily helped him pack the night before. She folded his shirts neatly, placed his documents in an organized folder, and reminded him to call her once he arrived safely. Michael watched her quietly as she zipped his suitcase. There was something almost unsettling about how much she trusted him. "You don't have to worry about anything here," Emily told him gently. "Just focus on the deal." Michael smiled. "I will." She hugged him before he left the apartment. "Good luck," she said. Michael kissed her forehead and walked out the door. But instead of heading toward the airport or any business meeting, he drove straight across Lagos Island to one of the most luxurious buildings in the city, the Grandeur Hotel. The towering glass structure rose above the surrounding streets like a monument to wealth. Valets moved quickly through the circular driveway, while guests in expensive clothing walked in and out of the marble entrance. Michael parked his car nearby and pulled out his phone. "I'm here," he texted. Within seconds, Chloe replied. Finally, she arrived 10 minutes later in a taxi, wearing oversized sunglasses, a tight white dress, and the confident smile of someone who believed she had just won a prize. When she stepped out of the car and saw the hotel entrance, her eyes widened. "Michael," she said slowly, "this place is expensive." Michael grinned proudly. "Relax. We deserve it." Inside, the lobby looked like something from an international luxury magazine. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. The floors were polished marble. Soft piano music floated through the air. Chloe looked around with open admiration. "You really booked this?" Michael nodded. 2 weeks. Chloe laughed excitedly and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Your wife must be incredibly generous." Michael chuckled. "She thinks I'm finalizing an investment deal." Chloe burst into laughter. "That poor woman." At the front desk, Michael confidently handed over his card and confirmed the reservation. The receptionist smiled politely. "Welcome to the Grandeur Hotel, sir. Your suite is ready." Moments later, a bellhop escorted them upstairs. The room they entered looked more like a private apartment than a hotel suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking view of the Lagos skyline. The living area was furnished with plush leather sofas. A king-size bed sat in the center of the bedroom, surrounded by soft golden lighting. Chloe spun around the room slowly, taking it all in. "Oh my God," she said. Michael dropped his suitcase beside the bed. "Impressive, right?" Chloe ran her fingers across the polished furniture. "You used your wife's money for this." Michael shrugged casually. "It's temporary." Chloe turned toward him with a playful smirk. "You're terrible." Michael laughed, but neither of them cared. For the next 2 weeks, they lived like careless celebrities. They ordered expensive meals delivered to the room. They lounged by the hotel pool. They spent afternoons drinking champagne and watching the city below. Michael paid for everything with the money Emily had trusted him with. And every night, when Emily called to ask how the business meetings were going, Michael lied smoothly. "The negotiations are going well," he told her. Emily sounded relieved every time. "I'm proud of you," she said once. Michael thanked her, then hung up and returned to the luxury suite where Chloe waited. But Chloe wasn't satisfied with just enjoying the affair. She wanted something more. She wanted to prove she had power over the wife she believed was weak. And near the end of their stay, she decided to do something cruel. It happened on a quiet afternoon inside the hotel suite. Chloe sat cross-legged on the bed scrolling through social media while Michael watched television in the living area. She suddenly looked up. "Does your wife know about me?" Michael laughed from the couch. "Of course not." Chloe tilted her head. "She has no idea you're here with another woman?" "None." Chloe smiled slowly. "That's boring." Michael frowned. "What do you mean?" She stood up and stretched lazily. "I want to see her." Michael sat up straighter. "That's not a good idea." Chloe ignored him. "Instead, She picked up Michael's phone from the bedside table. Does she call you often? She asked. Sometimes. Chloe opened the contact list. Michael stood up quickly. Chloe, stop. But she had already found the name. Emily. Before Michael could reach her, Chloe pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Then Emily answered. Hello. Her voice sounded calm and polite. Chloe smiled wickedly. Oh, hello, she said sweetly. You must be Emily. There was a brief pause. Yes, Emily replied carefully. Who is this? Chloe laughed softly. Well, let's just say I'm the woman currently sharing a very luxurious hotel suite with your husband. Silence filled the line. Michael stood frozen beside the bed. Chloe continued speaking. We're staying at the Grandeur Hotel, room 14. Michael whispered urgently. Hang up. But Chloe ignored him. You know what? She added mockingly. Michael has been making quite a mess with his clothes. Emily still said nothing. Chloe's voice became crueler. Since you're basically his housekeeper anyway, why don't you come pick them up? Michael grabbed the phone, but Chloe turned away, laughing loudly. Bring a laundry bag, she sneered. You might as well do your job properly. Then she ended the call. Michael stared at her in disbelief. What is wrong with you? Chloe only shrugged. I wanted to see how the poor wife would react. Michael rubbed his forehead nervously. You shouldn't have done that. Chloe collapsed onto the bed, unconcerned. Relax, she said. She's probably crying right now. But miles away, inside the quiet office where she had taken the call, Emily Carter was not crying. She was sitting perfectly still and slowly writing down an address. Then she spoke quietly to herself. Grandeur Hotel. What happened next would change everything. But Chloe had no idea she had just made the worst mistake of her life. For several seconds after the call ended, the office around Emily felt strangely silent. Her phone was still resting in her hand. Across the room, the low hum of the air conditioner continued, and outside her window, the distant Lagos traffic moved as it always did, loud, impatient, relentless. But inside Emily's mind, everything had slowed down. She replayed the conversation in perfect clarity. The woman's mocking voice, the laughter, the hotel name, the room number. Emily did not slam her phone down. She did not cry. She did not scream. Instead, she opened the small leather notebook she always carried in her handbag. Carefully, she wrote, Grandeur Hotel Room 14. Her handwriting was steady. Anyone watching her would have thought she was simply noting down a meeting location. At the desk beside her sat Rachel, Emily's younger sister, who worked in the same company as a junior administrator. Rachel had overheard part of the conversation through the open office door. She rushed in, eyes wide with shock. Emily, what was that? Emily looked up calmly. Michael's girlfriend. Rachel froze. His what? Emily repeated the words quietly. His girlfriend. Rachel's face turned red with anger. You're joking. Emily shook her head. Rachel began pacing the room. That woman insulted you like that, and you're just sitting here? Emily closed the notebook and slipped it back into her handbag. Rachel stared at her. Call him, she demanded. Call Michael right now. Emily remained seated. Why? Rachel looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Why? Because he's cheating on you. Emily leaned back in her chair, her expression still unreadable. Rachel continued. And that woman, who does she think she is? She told you to come pick up his clothes like you're some kind of maid. Emily folded her hands on the desk. Yes, she said simply. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. So do something. For a long moment, Emily said nothing. Then she finally spoke. Did she say the hotel name again? Rachel blinked. What? The hotel. Rachel frowned, thinking back. Grandeur something. Grandeur Hotel, Emily said softly. Rachel shook her head in disbelief. You're seriously focusing on the address right now. Emily stood up and picked up her handbag. Rachel crossed her arms. Where are you going? Emily walked toward the door. To the hotel. Rachel's jaw dropped. What? Emily turned slightly. She asked me to come collect the clothes. Rachel threw her hands in the air. Emily, that woman was mocking you. Emily nodded. I know. Rachel rushed after her. You can't just walk into that situation. Call Michael first. Confront him. Emily paused at the elevator and pressed the button. Rachel grabbed her arm. Say something. Emily looked at her sister calmly. Rachel waited desperately for anger, for heartbreak, for tears. But Emily only gave one quiet answer. Not yet. The elevator doors opened. Emily stepped inside, and for the first time since the phone call, a faint, thoughtful smile appeared on her face. The drive across Lagos took nearly 40 minutes. Traffic crawled through Victoria Island as usual, buses honking and motorcycles weaving between lanes. But Emily drove steadily, without impatience. When the towering glass building of the Grandeur Hotel finally appeared ahead, the afternoon sun reflected off its windows like polished mirrors. Emily parked her car nearby. Before stepping out, she checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her hair was perfectly arranged. Her navy dress was smooth and elegant. She looked calm, composed, respectable. Nothing about her appearance suggested a woman rushing to confront a cheating husband. Emily stepped out of the car and walked toward the grand entrance. The hotel's circular driveway buzzed with activity. Valets moved quickly between arriving vehicles. Guests pulled rolling suitcases across the marble floor. As Emily entered the lobby, several employees glanced toward her, not with curiosity, but with recognition. At the front desk stood Mr. Adeyemi, the hotel's general manager. He had managed the Grandeur Hotel for almost 15 years, and the moment he saw Emily walking through the doors, his expression immediately changed. He stepped away from the desk. "Miss Carter," he said warmly. Emily smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Mr. Adeyemi." The receptionist beside him looked surprised. Mr. Adeyemi nodded respectfully. "It's wonderful to see you again. We weren't expecting you today." Emily placed her handbag gently on the counter. "I hope that's not a problem." "Of course not," he said quickly. "This hotel is always yours." Because the truth was something very few people outside the Carter family knew. The Grandeur Hotel was not simply a place Emily was visiting. It was one of 3 luxury properties her late father had built and left to her in his inheritance. Emily rarely involved herself in the daily management. Professional executives handled operations, but ownership still belonged to her. And Mr. Adeyemi knew it. "Is everything all right?" he asked carefully. Emily nodded. "I believe so." Then she opened her notebook and showed him the page. "Could you tell me who is staying in room 14? Mr. Adeyemi glanced at the note. Then he checked the computer system. His polite expression slowly turned serious. "Yes," he said quietly. "I see the reservation." Emily waited patiently. Mr. Adeyemi looked back at her. "Would you like me to escort you upstairs?" Emily picked up her handbag. "That will be perfect." Moments later, the manager personally led her toward the private elevator. Upstairs, inside room 14, Michael and Chloe were still laughing, completely unaware that the woman they had mocked was now walking calmly through a hotel she owned. And in just a few minutes, the door to their luxury illusion would open. The hallway outside room 14 was quiet except for the soft hum of the hotel's air conditioning. Michael and Chloe had no idea what was happening outside the door. Inside the suite, Chloe was lying comfortably on the bed, scrolling through her phone while sipping champagne. Michael stood near the window, admiring the skyline as the evening sun began to dip over Lagos. "You really upset your wife earlier," Michael said, glancing back at Chloe. Chloe laughed lazily. "Good. Maybe she'll finally realize you belong with someone more exciting." Michael shook his head. "You shouldn't have called her." Chloe shrugged. "What's the worst that could happen? She shows up crying." Michael didn't answer. At that exact moment, there was a knock at the door. 3 calm, deliberate taps. Michael frowned. "Room service." Chloe rolled her eyes. "We didn't order anything." Michael walked toward the door anyway. When he opened it, the first thing he saw was Mr. Adeyemi, the hotel manager, standing politely in the hallway. And beside him, Emily. For a moment, Michael's brain refused to process what he was seeing. Emily stood perfectly still, dressed elegantly, her expression calm and unreadable. Behind her stood 2 hotel security guards. Michael's face drained of color. "Emily?" Inside the room, Chloe sat up quickly. "Who is it?" Emily slowly stepped forward into the suite. Her eyes moved across the room in quiet observation. The half-empty champagne glasses, the expensive food trays, the scattered clothes Chloe had earlier joked about. Everything told the story Michael had tried to hide. But Emily did not shout. She did not cry. She simply walked toward the bed where Chloe was sitting. Chloe stared at her, confused. "Who are you supposed to be?" she asked arrogantly. Emily looked at the pile of clothes Chloe had placed on the bed earlier. Then she turned toward Michael. Her voice was calm. "So, these are the clothes you wanted me to collect?" Michael opened his mouth, but no words came out. Chloe folded her arms. "Oh," she said slowly. "You must be the wife." Emily looked at her. "Yes." Chloe smirked. "Well, since you're here, you might as well." Emily raised a hand slightly. Chloe stopped talking. Then Emily said the sentence that changed the entire room. "You picked the wrong hotel." Chloe frowned. "What does that mean?" Emily turned toward the manager. "Mr. Adeyemi." The manager stepped forward respectfully. "Yes, Miss Carter." Chloe's expression shifted slightly. "Miss Carter." Emily spoke calmly. "This hotel has belonged to my family for over 20 years. Silence slammed into the room. Michael stared at her in disbelief. "What?" Emily continued. "My father built the Grandeur Hotel. After he passed away, ownership transferred to me." Michael looked around the suite as if seeing it for the first time. The luxury, the view, the expensive room he had proudly booked. All of it suddenly felt like a trap. Emily turned back to Mr. Adeyemi. "Could you please explain the booking details?" The manager opened a tablet. "Yes, ma'am. The guest checked in 2 weeks ago under Mr. Michael Carter. All room charges, restaurant expenses, and services have been documented." He glanced at Michael. "And I'm afraid there are also multiple security recordings confirming the presence of an additional guest." Chloe's confidence completely vanished. Michael felt his stomach drop. Emily folded her arms gently. "So the 7-month affair is well documented." Michael whispered. Emily listened, but she wasn't finished. She turned to Chloe. "Your stay here has now been terminated." Chloe stood up angrily. "You can't just throw me out." Emily didn't raise her voice. "I own the building." She nodded slightly toward the security guards. The 2 men stepped forward. Chloe looked at Michael desperately. "Are you going to say something?" But Michael stood frozen, completely powerless. Within minutes, Chloe was escorted out of the suite, shouting angrily while hotel guests in the hallway stared in shock. The woman who had tried to humiliate Emily was now being removed from the building she didn't realize Emily owned. When the door closed again, only Michael and Emily remained in the room. Michael looked broken. "You planned this," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "No." Then she spoke the truth he feared most. "I simply allowed you to reveal yourself." 3 weeks later, Michael sat across from a lawyer in a quiet Lagos office. The documents on the table in front of him were devastating. Divorce papers, asset statements, financial disclosures, and every page made the same thing painfully clear. Michael owned almost nothing. The car he drove, registered under Emily's family trust. The apartment they had lived in, purchased through Emily's inheritance. Even the money he had spent at the Grandeur Hotel had come from an account connected to the Carter family estate. Michael had believed he was living comfortably because of his own success. But the truth was much harsher. His lifestyle had always been supported quietly by Emily. Now that support was gone. Across the table, Emily's lawyer spoke calmly. "Mr. Carter, the settlement terms are very straightforward." Michael stared at the documents. "You're leaving me with nothing." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "You are leaving this marriage with exactly what you contributed to it." Michael had no answer. Across the city, Emily sat in a completely different room. The boardroom of the Carter Property Group. Several executives were gathered around the large table, discussing expansion plans for the family's hotel chain. Emily sat at the head of the table, confident, respected, unbothered. A new proposal appeared on the presentation screen. Expansion of the Grandeur Hotel brand into 2 additional cities. The room looked toward Emily. She nodded calmly. "Proceed." The meeting continued. Outside the building, Lagos moved with its usual chaotic rhythm. Inside the boardroom, Emily Carter had quietly stepped into the life she had always been meant to lead. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's support system, but as the woman in control of her own empire. And somewhere in that same city, Michael finally understood the mistake that had destroyed everything. He had betrayed the one woman who never needed him to succeed. And now, she was gone. Forever.